Hello everybody, and the last video, this ended up taking a lot longer video than I thought. So here's part two. This is going to be, the first part was designing it and roughing it in, and this part will be getting it all up and ready to work, and then hopefully we'll end this doing a water test and hopefully it don't leak. I don't think it will, but okay. First thing we got to do is drill holes, and we're going to be drilling holes all through here, and now we want as many holes as we can fit and still have the piece be, the integrity of the piece still hold together, which, you know, because this is going to be the part that the sponge goes over and that the water flows through, so we want as less restriction as possible. For that, I'll be using my drill, and another important part that you want to, when you're drilling holes in PVC and holding it with your hands, you want to turn the brake on your drill all the way down, because if you have too much power on there, you're going to have a really bad time. So this is my smallest bit. This is the size we'll be using for the spray bar holes, and then I like to use as big of a one as I feasibly can, and sometimes the 5/8 one is just too much. So I usually use the half, this one here, for the intake. I'll try doing the 5/8 though, because, you know, it speeds it up and makes bigger holes, means you gotta make less holes. But bigger holes are a bigger pain to drill. So I'm going to do the drilling part outside, and because I don't want to get stuff all over the floor and in my house. Alright, this is probably the hardest part of doing all this, is drilling all these holes, and it is really cold outside. My hands are frozen numb. So you can see that there's no rhyme or reason. I've kind of got to, what I do is I come through here, comes out the other side, turn it, goes through all the way through, turn it, goes all the way through, turn it, goes all the way through, turn it. That's how I do it. And all these little loose bits, make sure you get them all picked out, and they ain't got to be perfect. You're going to have little burrs and stuff on there unless you're really crazy about it being perfect, and you could sand it, I guess. But I've never done that, and I've never had any issues at all with this. So like I said, good enough is good enough. Alright, so the intake is done, and we don't have to glue anything or anything on that. So when we put this cap back on here and put this guy on there, intake is done, other than the intake sponges. So now we're going to be talking about drilling holes in the spray bars. So the first thing we're going to do is use a pencil and the other one to get both pipes together, both spray bar halves, to mark a straight line down both sides of the pipe. So there we have our straight line with pencil, and then we're going to come through here, and on that straight line put a mark every 2 inches or so. Alright, and that will be good, and we'll do the same thing on this side. every 2 inches. And then I also want to have, since the spray bar is going to be sticking out from the other side of the tank, I'm going to put a couple holes. I'm going to put a hole right here at 7.5, since each side's 15, and then over here 7.5, roughly. And so then we'll have spraying back, and then let's see, then we can put one at the end. Let's see, so then we put one in the middle here at 2-inch mark, and that'll be the one that we want pointing up to the surface. That makes any sense, and that will be our surface agitation. So we're drilling holes on every mark. Yeah, the timers are coming on, all the fish tanks are coming on. One pointing backwards and one pointing up. So I might readjust it, the orientation on this back one and the side ones, once I get the holes drilled, but it's not exact and it'll be good enough. Okay, and then for this one, I did end up using the 5/8 hole saw bit, but on these we're using my smallest one, and that is 3/8. 3/8 inch holes, and we'll be using this guy here. Okay, so you can see it's going to be, actually this will be the right side, and we have holes going that way. We have a hole over here shooting to the top and a hole over there shooting to the back. So you may notice the light come on. I had the light and timer hooked up, and so this is the same 150 watt light that I have on the guppy pond, but I also have other lights on the guppy pond. And through experience, I've learned that this is too much light that close. So it is much higher up off the guppy pond than the guppy pond light is, the same 150 watt light. But now we only need one light, so hopefully we don't have the same algae problems that we have in the guppy pond in here. So there's that. I haven't talked about the light yet, other than posting a few pictures of it. So now the next step is talking about what needs glued. Now, I've already said, I know I said it in the other video, but the intake, I don't glue anything on the intake side. So none of this is getting glued. And when you ask yourself, what needs glued and what don't need glued, and it's going to be, what happens if this joint comes apart? Is it going to be catastrophic? Is there going to be water pouring out? Are we going to have problems? So, because the less joints that are glued, the better off you're going to be to work on it. And if the pump goes bad, you need to buy a new pump. So, nothing on the intake. We've already gone over that. Nothing on the intake is glued. This joint, it don't have to be glued, because if this comes off, it's just going to, and unless you have the pond way too full, and it's not going to cause problems. So nothing down here on the pump needs glued, in my opinion. Now, if this T pops off, you're going to have a really bad time. So because then you're gonna have water fountaining, and that's gonna be real bad. Now these parts, this don't need glued, and this don't need glued, this don't need glued, and this don't need glued, because if something happens and one of these comes off, it's just gonna shoot out this T. So as long as the T is glued, then these don't need glued. This and this. Or if this comes off, you're just gonna be shooting up against the side of the pond, and hopefully nothing would spray out. And this will allow you to make adjustments to the angle of where your holes are coming from. Now obviously this needs glued. Everything from here on needs glued. So that's what we're going to start doing now. I'm going to go ahead and glue this T on here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now mind you, I don't think I'm going to video the gluing part. I'm not going to use any primer. There's absolutely hardly any pressure at all on this. There's not going to be hardly any back pressure, so there's no need to glue it. And I'm not going to argue with people, so it works. I've done it lots of times and it's good enough, and I've never had anything leak on me doing it that way. So we'll check back when every so often when I go from joint to joint, gluing it together. Okay, so here's all the parts that were glued. The T, the arm on the right side, the arm on the left side, and so all these connections are glued. And I will say, all I'm going to talk about gluing is, besides not using a primer and being fine for this application, is you want to put glue down in the fitting, glue on the end of the pipe, stick them all the way in together, and then turn it a little bit. And that will make sure you get the best connection. And you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Okay, so this project has bled into the next day, into the afternoon. I let the parts dry and then ended up having to do a bunch of dad stuff last night. Then I spent all morning packing orders that went out today. And so here we are, back to the pond filter build. Everything should be dry. Okay, so let's start piecing this together. We've got all the holes drilled that we think we need, and we can always make changes later. And we got our pieces that need glued. So let's see if it all fits together and looks good and fits. Everything works. Now that everything's glued and there's no changing the parts that are glued, we'd have to redo them if they don't work. So hopefully we're good. Alright, let's piece them together. So, if you remember, this is glued right here, but these are not glued. So the first thing I'm going to do is put this guy on here. So since that ain't going to be glued on there, we want to make sure it's on there good and snug. And we've got the left side. And then we've got the right side over here. We got our spray bar bits. Here we go. I don't want to go back on there. Alright, that's good. think we got some glue in that elbow and it's not wanting to friction fit real good. That one's alright. Alright, so making sure our holes are pointing the way we want them to be pointing. So we've got these holes pointing to the front, we've got one hole pointing to the top, and we've got a hole here in the middle pointing backwards. Let's see if I can get this on here a little bit better. I might have to fight this. Alright, it's almost perfect. I mean, it's good enough. You can see here, I think. Now we are ready for the leak test, and I'm still waiting on my sponges to come in. I ordered them like last week and they still haven't even shipped, so that's the hold up. But we can fill it up, and another thing I want to do is I want to fill it up, leak test it, and make sure it's not going to leak before I even put substrate in, because that's going to be a big ordeal dealing with that. And before we fill it with water, there's little dust bits in there, and it was sitting outside of the parking lot in Rural King when I bought it, covered in ice and snow, and there's like grass bits in it, and I tried to vacuum all that out, but there's still some in there. So I'm going to vacuum it up one good time, and then we'll fill it up with water and we'll let that sit, check for leaks, and then once we got enough water in here it starts filling up, then we're going to see, we'll plug in this filter and see how that goes. And here it is, the very first second. And my thing popped off here. This thing's been going. I'm going to have to figure out something with that tap. It won't even stay on anymore. That's awesome. There we go. First few seconds of putting water in it. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to try to get this on video the first time it's plugged in. Let's see if I can get down in here and plug her in. Alright. This is difficult to get at, but not super difficult. Well, I hear it. Oh yeah, I think we got a winner. I think we got a winner. So the one shooting backwards, the one shooting up won't be firing that good with the water being low like that. But I don't want a whole bunch of flow. So that is perfect. That's perfect. Very nice. Okay, we'll see how that changes as it fills up more. We are leak free so far, and we're getting close to about half. So that's good. No leaks at the drain and no leaks at the end of the filter, so we're getting there. You see the ones on the top and the ones shooting backwards. Nice even flow throughout for the most part, I think. So I think this is going to be a success. I'll wait and see till it's all the way filled up. Alright, we're like 90% full now, and you can see the two holes I put pointing up for surface agitation are working as planned. As soon as that water got up to the lower levels of the spray bar, we started getting good flow out of them top holes. So that is super awesome. And you can see if the little dust, and there's a few little bits in here, because then these spray bars, the pressure's coming out this way and going that way, so these holes are shooting this direction, and it comes around the edge and puts a nice little circular current. And then the same thing is going on this side. These are shooting off this way, and you can see there's a nice little circular current, and then they meet in the middle and go right back towards the pump. And we'll have good circulation, we'll have surface agitation. I think I've covered all my goals I want to do with this project. So, and we have no leaks, and that is always super awesome. And I jacked up the floor real good, and I mean, it's from one all the way to the left side to the right side. It might be off not even a quarter of an inch, so that's good. And wow, I'm excited. This turned out as good as I could possibly have hoped. So thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go shut the water off because it's full. I'm gonna let this run for a few days, and then before I add substrate, I'm gonna do 100% water change, you know, just because, you know, that I've let that stuff I used to seal the drains off, I let that cure for 3 or 4 days, I think. And then, but I don't think it's going to put off anything harmful at this point. Then there's stuff in the stock tanks. I figured 100% water change, and if there's anything bad in there, we will have it covered and it won't be a problem. But that turned out so good like that. Man, I'm so happy with this. Alright everybody, thank you guys for watching. Maybe you want to try this project yourself sometime. Bye.